Well, guys, welcome back to the TNA podcast. This is actually going to be one of our last episodes before we go on summer break. Adrienne and I have had a really beautiful conversation this morning about honoring the rhythms of life. And it was me who stepped forward and asked for a bit of a pause because her life is spent in a beautiful place over the summer, right? Where she gets to live amongst trees and birds and I'm imagining bodies of water, but I don't know. Lakes, rivers, streams. Okay. Right. And my life is actually getting ready to catapult into a really busy season because I have a little one that's growing up faster than I would like to. His birthday is today. He turns 12 today. So this time, 12 years ago, I was at the doctor's office preparing for a version that never came. For those of you that don't know what a version is, it's where they attempt to turn a breech baby and place them in the appropriate position for a vaginal delivery. That never happened. But this little man is getting ready to hop into a really busy social season. And I was like, man, we talk about honoring the rhythms of life and the cycles of life all the time on this podcast. And it would be really helpful for me to have some space as I'm going to be the one that's basically lovingly chauffeuring him for all of this travel throughout the various months of summer break. You're listening to the TNA podcast.
Totally not appropriate.
We're your hosts, Taylor Sappington, a cosmic cartographer, medical astrologer, and herbalist decoding the intersection of soul, body, and belief.
And Adrienne Irizarry, a psychoalchemist trained in East Asian medicine, vibrational healing, and the sacred science of your nervous system.
Together, we blend ancient tools, clinical wisdom, and unapologetic truth-telling.
From main events to metaphysics, tarot to tonics, karma to cancel culture, nothing is off limits and everything is on the table.
This space is for the boldly curious,
the ones who crave uncomfortable conversations, crave deeper insight, and are done pretending that they don't feel what they feel.
So turn it up,
tune in,
and don't say we didn't warn you.
Welcome to TNA.
We're talking about a really real and raw topic that I think a lot of you would relate to and with. So I asked Adrienne if it would be okay if I hit record, and she gave me the okay. So, Adrienne, where were we?
Ooh, this is going to be an emotional one for me, guys. We were talking about when shit falls apart in all of the friggin' ways. And loss of identity. And
Starlink's going to be a real gem right now. Please stop buffering.
I gave birth to a little person 19 months ago. He's amazing. It was a really long journey to bring this little soul earthside. It shaped me as a person and a practitioner. And I stepped through the birth portal with a beautiful home birth, welcoming my son into our family. And literally everything has fallen the fuck apart since then.
Yeah.
We've had health issues in our family. I have had a massive upheaval in my practice. I have been on the brink of losing my practice a couple of times now for a lot of reasons outside of my control. And we were talking about that invitation to space and quiet and allowing instead of being in motion in an effort to deal with it.
Yeah.
I've had a really hard time with the space aspect of things because, like so many of us, I try to do in an effort to cope. If I feel like I'm doing something, then I'm not being lazy and I'm not letting things happen to me and I'm being proactive. Even if it just means an hour of doing something, then at least when I put my head on my pillow at the end of the day, I feel like I've done something. And none of that is working out for me.
I have had my own experience in this chapter, and I probably, in some way, shape, or form, will have another experience in this type of chapter, because the one thing that we can absolutely count on in life is constantly coming back to our own inner, I'm going to call it demons, because I think it gives a good visual, right? Like coming back to our own inner demons. But every time not that we want to slay our inner demons, but it kind of makes me feel like a badass when I'm like, I walked in and I slayed my demons, like we come back to them from a place of reorientation, right? And when we come back to the same place that we've traveled to so many times with different tools and different perspectives, we interact with it in a different capacity, right? So Adrienne and I have really traveled a very similar trajectory. As you all well know, I closed my business, I closed my baby down. I dissolved her a year ago in February. And it was a very long, emotional, hard road for me to get there. But as Adrienne is describing, every time I attempted to re-enter her as an entity and make her work and try to get my energy that was evolving to match where she was and try to do things the way that I had always done them, another fucking dumpster fire would break out. And at some point, I was more of a firefighter and less of a practitioner. And I got tired of carrying the heavy hose around. Well, for me, eventually you have to go, okay, this is really not what it's supposed to look like. This is not actually why I started the beautiful thing that I started. And it's okay for these things in life to have chapters, but essentially letting the fire, it's like a controlled burn almost. You know how indigenous communities would go through and they would burn parts of the land for regenerative purposes? Eventually, I started reorienting myself towards the idea that like, this is a controlled burn. And all the pieces and parts of who I am got tossed into the fire that couldn't go forward with me, right? The last thing I wanted to do, and I can say this with such conviction at this point, and I feel like if you've not been here before in your own way, like one day this will resonate. If you've been through this chapter in life and, you've walked through the fire, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Like I just got so incredibly exhausted of being the person that codependently took care of people that were constantly in a state of being devoted to victimhood. And the only reason that those things, and I have wonderful clients that still exist in my world. So you know who you are and this is not about you. And if you come across this podcast and you and I have had our own tango, yeah, this is probably about you. I hope you've healed. But with that being said, I have, right? Like I've taken the time, I've done the hard shit, I've sat in the dark places. Thank you for walking me there. I wouldn't be here without you. But sometimes we have to recognize that the way that we have been taught to do things is not the way that we're actually meant to do things. And I know we grew up under a generation that was like, you work hard at the same company for 20 or 30 years. And then they all sound like that now, respectfully. And then you retire and you have your pension. I don't even think that's a thing anymore. Now we have a 401k, which is a big fat joke, so you have your 401k and you have your golden years. And it's like, yet not in this day and age, bud. So I was just like, I think this is a really good opportunity to reflect back to people that it's okay to let things that you love die. Mm-hmm.
Where I am in this process is there's actually a lot of clarity around, like, I don't think that I'm going to be shuttering my practice. I think it's how it communicates itself and how I do my work. And there's been a huge pruning process where I've wanted to get rid of every stitch of clothing in my closet. I want the work to be simpler. Like there is some clarity emerging, how to reach the people that I want to work with is still unclear. A new voice is emerging, a new identity is emerging. It all weirdly still fits with like the name that I chose for my business. That part still works. Looking back over the years that I've been in practice, it's a little bit like what you were saying, like this thing that I was practicing alongside what I was actually doing in my day job is very real for me as well. I was pulling in questions around life and history and how you move through the world and woundings and all of that kind of stuff, like in and amongst, because it does fit with traditional Chinese medicine. But I found that I really wanted to go far more into the esoteric side of things. And I had created a container for.
Mm-hmm.
So clarity is starting to emerge, but, having walked through the birth portal, every time you give birth to a baby, a
A
business,
business. Yep.
whatever, a new version of you emerges.
Yeah, but I'm still in postpartum. That's a 3-year period.
Mhm.
So I'm giving myself all the permission. And Adrienne is metaphorically and literally still in postpartum. Literally.
Yeah. And I mean, everything fell apart in my immediate postpartum. The plan I had put in place to keep my practice open, to keep my office open, all of that shit went down in flames. And it called into question a lot of deep wounds that I have around trust.
Yeah.
And, so fast forward to where I am now. I mean, I've been postpartum for 19 months now. I would get downloads at 3:00 in the morning feeding my son, where I would just dictate into my phone because there were things that were flowing through me. And the program that is the most successful right now is the one that brings my heart the most joy. So I've been sitting with what does it look like to restructure everything that I'm doing in really more of an energetic way rather than a working on symptoms as the focal point kind of way. Moon Essence still fits as a name for all of that. And, I kind of look at it at this point, kind of like divine guidance. I was given a name that worked at the beginning because it was working in alignment with where I was supposed to go. But the how I get there, I'm letting myself kind of dream into, well, what would my ideal day look like? Do a couple of hours of recording, whether it's for class or content or whatever, go for a walk at lunch with my son, be able to lay down with him to put him down for a nap. During his nap, work for another couple of hours so I can do something that makes my heart feel joy, because I know intellectually I was never meant to not do something while, juggling motherhood.
Mhm.
Intellectually, I know that I need that in order to feel complete and whole and happy. But I like the idea of the fluidity, right? So, I've been sitting with all of that.
It can feel like an elephant is sitting on your lap too when you've spent so long in a place and there are tentacles of identity attached to something that you really care about. I don't care what anybody says. When you build something from the ground up, there is no separating you from it.
Mm-hmm.
And this whole your business is its own entity. Yes. And my child is his own entity. I still would stand in front of a moving bus for him. Right. Yes, my business is its own entity and I'm going to do everything hell and high water until it gives me the cues. Okay, well, it gave me whispers, it gave me screams, and then it gave me bricks, right? That it was ready to rest. But I also think you said something interesting about producing things. And one of the elements that I really had to get comfortable with, which I'm actually quite comfortable with this, it's the advice that we constantly get from outside of ourselves, is being non-visible for people. I didn't want to be visible to the general public. It's very much documented on my Instagram. There are different chapters of visibility that you can absolutely see. Visibility for me now is if I'm making something for my family herbally, I'm going to record it and share it with you. I do this shit all day, every day. Might as well share it, share the wealth, right? If I have something really meaningful to say, I'm going to hop on and I'm going to talk about it. But outside of that, I don't want to constantly be visible for other people. And I think we don't need it, but it feels like we need permission to not be visible. It feels like we need permission to not post for a week. I have taken months off of social media. Guess what? I'm fine. I have taken weeks off of social media. Guess what? I'm fine. The reality of it is most people remember you for 3 seconds and they're so in their own bubble that they move on after that, sadly. But I also don't want to continue to contribute to the constant consumerism.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I took 2 days off. Who cares? If you really want to see me more often, I got offers in my link. Go find them. I'd love to sit with you in that capacity. It's way more fucking fun than interacting on Instagram too. And you're going to get a lot more out of it than liking a post, saving a post, and never going back to it, because that's what most people do. So there's this visibility piece. And I think we all really need to start evaluating what we are told visibility needs to look like versus what actually like works for us.
I think that's a really good point. And I sent this to you in a message yesterday. I went to a networking group.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting in it, and I mean, everybody was lovely. It wasn't that. It was the fact that that functionality, that format just didn't feel authentic to me. It felt like, and maybe this is why I've always had a hard time with like going to networking events. And I'm also naturally more of an introvert. So, those things that I have to time those in my cycle appropriately in order to not hate the whole experience. And again, it's not the people that I'm meeting. It's the fact that it takes energy from me and there's an energetic exchange that doesn't feel good to me. And so I got done and I was like, well, that was great, but that wasn't what I was hoping it would be. And this isn't the way that I want to connect with people. And I do like doing fairs most of the time. I like doing fairs because it's like a person-to-person interaction. You can get a sense of like their energy and, they are a little exhausting for me, but they feel a little more genuine. And the people who are meant to find you. And I always start every event setting that intention, let the people who need what it is that I'm offering find me, and they do. And some of those events have brought care clients where I've been able to help them energetically through their transition into the next energetic state, which was really beautiful and enriching for me in a lot of ways, as well as it was for that person. So I think that's where I'm stuck in all of this is like, I know that what doesn't feel good to me right now, and that part is clear. But how to move forward in the non-bro marketing kind of way. I did a post the other day about
marketing.
How nutraceutical companies are preying on people and how like
they have been for years. Most of these companies
really bad right now.
It's just going to continue to get worse. Just like the testing has been preying on people for years. Like if you pee in a cup every 3 months, no, babe, your body changes every 90 seconds. What do you mean every 3 months? You got to meet your body in the moment. It's the same thing with supplements. It's interesting. I had a conversation with a functional MD yesterday. And while we largely agreed on a lot of things, I know where she's coming from because I've been there, but I just could not see it the way that she was seeing it. She's like, well, if vitamin D is low. And I'm like, well, there is a whole conversation that needs to be had in regards to vitamin D. Like, what does their sun exposure look like? Are they getting their eye exposure in the morning? Is there midday sun? Like, we're not actually making it easier for people by bolus dosing them massive amounts of nutraceuticals. If anything, we're completely fucking with a chemistry project that then has to compensate. And eventually, somewhere along the line, we're going to create another deficit. It's not easier to go with big doses of the ones that you see in deficiency. It's much better to work in small doses of maintenance, synergy, so that over time the body does exactly what it needs to do. Totally with you on nutraceutical companies, though. Most of the time you don't need it, guys.
And I realize that has been not that's the way I've been practicing. It isn't, but it's like I've been in practice, again, not a pill for a symptom, but definitely looking at a set of symptoms and pulling apart the pattern rather than going to the harder questions. And this is actually where I've had some of the attrition in my practice that has been very eye-opening, is that when I do ask some of those questions about what was your relationship like with your mother? What was your relationship like with your father? What were your family dynamics like growing up? When did you start your bleed? What was the conversation like when that started? And asking those questions has offended people. And I actually have somebody asking for a refund right now because I was inappropriate by their standards asking that question. So I'm realizing that my work is far more rooted in more of the metaphysical expression of health. And it has been. I just didn't see it that way. And so, yeah, there's definitely an evolution that's taking place. I have felt many small deaths over the course of the last 2 years. I had a client conversation yesterday, and she just had her first baby, and we were talking about the identity death that happens between maidenhood and matrescence.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, you have one every time you have a baby, regardless of whether it's your first time in matrescence or it is your sixth time crossing the threshold of matrescence. Like, you change when your body becomes a portal and you usher a soul to the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that everything was going to be different, not just because I had a baby before, because, you're adding all of those changes to the equation, but I wasn't prepared for how strong his energetic aspect was going to be on my expression of who I am.
Yeah.
And so there was an identity death that happened after I gave birth to him. And then there was one that happened in the middle of that first year. And I'm still navigating how I physically feel in my body. And I'm 19 months postpartum.
Research is now showing that postpartum lasts up to 7 years.
Yeah. And, Chinese medicine says don't even think about it before 24 months, ideally 4 years.
Yeah.
Just so that you
Indigenous cultures, it's 3.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Before you have another.
Yep. Because, it's a replenishing of your onboard resources. It's an orientation to who you are as a person, who you are as a parent, all of these things. And, my practice was born from my life's journey, my life's work. My approach to that work was born from the struggles I was personally seeing that I was trying to help others with. And I don't identify with that any longer.
100%. I was waiting for it. Yeah, but you're no longer struggling to get pregnant. You're no longer struggling to regulate your period. That's a different conversation. I think there are elements that maybe we'll put that on, the list for when we come back as to like why women struggle with their period later on in life. And I think it has much more to do with energetics and endocrine orientation towards relationships than it has to do with actual hormonal imbalances.
Yeah.
Right. But like, how are you supposed to run a practice? And this was the thing. Everything inside of me was screaming, you're different. You're a different human. You don't relate to the people that are, this is 3 years ago, right? 2 years ago, right? You don't relate to the people coming in your door. You're not a victim of your symptoms, right? You're an excavator. You're a disruptor. You reorient yourself. Like, you spend enough time in victimhood and you made your way through it, right? Mm-hmm. So how are you going to guide somebody that's so attached to this identity when you can't relate anymore? And that's not to say that everybody that came to me was a victim of their symptoms. A lot of them were not. And I've had beautiful interactions, right? But I would say it's probably 50-50, 60-40, maybe even 70-30. 30% of the people I worked with actually did the really hard shit, right? And dug themselves out of the trench.
Yeah.
Okay. I just got an email from a client. I was in fucking tears reading it. I worked with her 2 years ago, and she was like, this is so her personality, but she's like, my final email to you. And I was like, I won't say her name, but like, that's such a her thing to say, and in this email, she was like, I was ready to take my life when I came to you. And I hated everything you said to me. I literally was so frustrated with you every time we got on the phone and you told me like, I needed to pull back. I needed to simplify. I needed to look at this. I needed to go here. I needed to talk to this person. I needed to, like, it would be best for me to look at it from this perspective. She's like, but for some reason, something inside me told me I needed to stick with you, stick with you, stick with you. And I passed her care off when it was time, not to another physician, but to another provider that oriented more in the mental health space. Like, we got where we could physically. And then I went, okay, it's time for me to pass your care off, right? 2 years later, this woman took the time to sit down and write me like a 6-paragraph email telling me I changed her life. That's why I fucking do it. 2 years later, right? And this is a person who didn't like my approach at first, couldn't stand what I was saying, didn't want to do things the simple way. in our time together, did the dog and pony show of going to doctors that gaslit her, talked her down, told her she was crazy, all the shit that probably all of us have been through. She'd find her way back and she'd be like, I couldn't outrun the things that you were telling me I needed to do. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And this chapter of life, I'm meeting the woman who doesn't need to go to the doctor and be gaslit 10 more times. In this chapter of life, I'm meeting the woman that's like, yeah, okay, I did all this shit and I know I need to go 10 layers deeper. In this chapter of life, I'm meeting the woman that's like, I don't know how to explain what exists out there, but it exists out there and I need you to help me connect the bridge. So like there was no way I or you, Adrienne, I'm saying this because of where you are, like there's no way I could continue doing what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way you can continue doing what you were doing in the same capacity. You ain't her anymore.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I wanted the conversations to get richer and deeper, right? And I was already starting to go there and I was afraid of going there because I knew that I had a lot of weird witchy woo behind the curtain and I didn't know how that was going to be accepted as a practitioner.
I really wish we would stop calling it that. Because I actually think what you and I practice is much more medicinal than the medicine that people identify as medicine.
I agree. At the time.
No, I got you. I'm just like, this is me saying, like, can we stop calling people woo-woo? Like,
yeah.
If it's so woo, why are you in my office after 15 doctors? And why is what I do working better than the 25 medications they put you on? Like, can you explain that to me? Like, why am I woo when I'm the only one that's working for you? Oh, and then I take the time to get to know you and I want to know your family and I want to know your life story. What the fuck about that is woo?
I've found that my style is more of a synergy of tell me about who you are, your lived experience. I want to get to know you as a person. And then like, you can't turn the practitioner brain off. So like that shit just naturally happens as a program running in the background as somebody's telling you about their life. So then you ask questions like, oh, so what was the dynamic between you and blah, blah, blah. And then we end up getting to I am having a lot of pain with my period. And I had the coolest conversation with a client the other day who was like, you were right. And it wasn't because she told me I was right.
Yeah.
It was what she recognized after just a couple of months of working together. She's like, you know what? She goes, when I started to push on the second day of my period, she's like, I started having more cramps and then I would back off and I would take a break at work and then they would stop. And she goes, you were right. And I'm like, it's because it's an energetic gap that, like your body is here, but the expectations of the world are over here. And your body is saying, no, girl, like I don't have the energy on board to do that thing.
And collectively, we're all being asked to go. The expectations of society are here, but we're all here. It's time for this to meet us instead of us continually like pulling from resources we don't have. Like all you got to take 5 minutes, not even 3 minutes, 2 minutes, a minute, scroll on Instagram. Everybody is burnt the fuck out, saturated, depressed, angsty, fearful of what's to come. Guys, we all create the reality with which we live in. And I don't mean that from like a manifestation woo-woo perspective. I mean that from a frequency perspective, right? So if you're depressed, and what are you going to attract? If you're living in a state of fear, what are you calling to you? Life is merely a mirror. It's a reflective mirror. So when we operate out of alignment, of course it's going to feel like shit somewhere in our physical form, right? Because we're literally calling in things that don't feel good. It's an invitation to operate in a different frequency. And I know that sounds very like unattainable, but it's small pivots, right? It's being willing to hurt your own feelings. It's being willing to ask questions. It's being willing to take inventory of the life around you and go like, is this really what I want? And then admit, well, I'm happy. It's like me. I'm happy with where I am. I'm content and I want more. Those two things are allowed to exist. And I'm not willing to settle like I used to settle. I'm not. Like, it's fine. We'll figure out the financial piece as we go. I am not going to work with somebody that makes my heart feel like it wants to jump out of my chest just because it's a payday. Fuck fuck, both the middle fingers are up. Okay, fuck that.
Mm-hmm.
I get that I have bills to pay. That's nice. When are the banks going to be on the hook for all this shit? I'm in debt. I'm sorry. We live in a country that's like trillions of dollars in debt. Are you fucking kidding me? I think the overarching is like, we wanted to hop on and we wanted to talk about seasons, and we wanted to talk about the importance of honoring those seasons. And we wanted to talk about the difficulty in honoring those seasons sometimes, because whether we like to admit it to ourselves or not, sometimes parts of our person and parts of how we identify ourselves are still very much rooted in the identity that we're trying to separate ourselves from.
Yeah.
And those parts deserve to be handled with the same loving care as the ones that are trying to take root right now, because they're what got us to where we are. And oh my God, thank you for the journey. Thank you so much for the lessons. Thank you for the experiences. And you can rest now.
Yeah, our culture expects us to live in spring and summer energy all the time. Mm-hmm. And there is no place in nature that there isn't a period of dormancy where you pull back and things are slower and things aren't flowering and fruiting. And I feel all 4 seasons pretty distinctly where I am in New England. But even in tropical places, for example,
Florida.
Mm-hmm, there's still an element of this is the flourishing season and this is not.
I mean, if we really want to orient it to personalization, my birthday is on June 2nd. I just started my last lunar return, my last month before my birthday, before my solar return. Okay. 2 to 3 months prior to your actual birthday are your winter. Like, I'm summer. So my birthday is summer, but my personal winter is spring. And it starts with Aries season. My moon is in Aries. So it makes sense, right? Like my internal world, which is usually pretty fiery, zippy, Aries, like a doer, you know what I mean? Eventually it ends up like I land myself in March and I'm like, okay, everybody's celebrating spring, like the zodiacal spring, which I totally like. I think that's the alignment. I totally agree with it. And I'm getting ready to go into my cocoon because I have the next 2 to 3 months to review what my last 9 have looked like and really determine what the next 12 are going to look like. Mm-hmm. And then I have my solar return informing that. I have a Pisces rising this year. How I feel is going to determine how I navigate my world. I'm usually a think and do. Mm-hmm. This next year is going to be a feel.
I think mine is, I have Pisces. That's a big player in mine too, if I remember correctly. I've read it so many times, Taylor, you'd think I'd have it memorized by now.
It's okay. You go back to it from a different perspective every time, right? It's even with my lunar returns. Like I'll go back to my lunar return, which, is my new month. My new month this year started on the 16th with the Taurus new moon. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, that's fascinating. So like my new month starts right along with the Taurus new moon. And guess what? My bleed completely flipped this month to match differences, right, of moon cycles. I think I've been bleeding with the full moon as of late. And I ovulated with the full moon this month. People are, you are not going to, not you, just generally, you are not going to educate me on cycles. They do what they want, especially when your body is attuned to things and it knows when it needs to let go of something. That's like when people are like, I've had the shit. Okay, what are you processing?
Yes.
I don't really give a shit what you ate. That's like an easy thing to figure out. Or your hydration. Please don't bore me with those details. I want to know what elements of your life you are actually not processing diarrhea, refusing to absorb constipation, right? Or properly processing regular bowel movements. Everything else is going to follow that.
Yep. Yeah, I just got lucky, I guess, even though Aquarius is where it falls in the calendar. My winter mirrors winter. So I feel the pull inward hard because it's cold. You have the natural hibernation energy anyway. And then add on top of it the fact that it's my personal winter. I can see when my husband hits his personal winter. He's a Scorpio. His whole demeanor changes when he hits his personal winter.
and we all try to operate against it. We all try to operate in kind or in lightness with the seasons that exist around us, and it's kind of just like, yeah, that's nice, but that's not really how this works. And the more that we try to do that, like, great place to start. If you've never worked with cycles and seasons, look outward, but eventually outward's going to tell you to tune inward. And like sometimes we go through, depending on what's going on with the moon, in your world, sometimes we go through little bouts of, I'm going to call them tornadoes or windstorms, if you will, where we have to seek cover, right? And we have to let destruction. There is nothing we're going to do in Florida when a hurricane is barreling up the coast other than try to properly prepare. We're going to board up our windows. We're going to bring everything that could be flying objects, into the garage. Like, we're going to get appropriate commissions for what we need to eat. We're going to prepare to have no power. But once the storm is here, it is literally waited out. Like, you get to listen to the wind. You don't know what's going on outside your windows because you can't see. Like, you have 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 hours, depending on how long it chooses to sit, to basically not know what's going on outside in your world. And there's nothing you can do about it. You have to let nature take its course. And I think it's no different when it comes to the destruction of things that we've created. And we get new life. We lose a lot of things, but we also get like the budding of new life, and certain, areas that needed to be leveled get leveled, and like we reorient ourselves back to community. It's funny how Mother Nature has this way of continuously having us like recognize where we've gotten lost. There's no power. I'm not worried about my computer, my email, answering somebody on Instagram. I'm like, where are we going to get water? How are we going to get the dogs into air conditioning? Is there something that we need to do to make the house safer? It's no different in your world. Sometimes we go through our own personal hurricanes, if you will, and we can prepare for them the best that we can. But once they arrive, gotta let nature take its course. And what will survive the hurricane is probably what you're meant to take forward with you. But, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 hours in a house when the winds are 102 miles an hour outside, scary as shit. Not knowing what your business is going to look like 6 months from now, scary as shit. Not knowing how you're going to pay your bills, scary as shit. And I know this is going to sound really woo for people, but, those who have faith with some form of a higher power will understand this. Yes, manifestation requires co-creation. You cannot passively manifest. Sorry, don't believe that. You have to be an active participant in your life. And when you're constantly being asked to look at something and pivot, maybe the action part isn't what's needed from you right now. Maybe it's, I'm just thinking about how many times I attempted to pivot, and finally it was like, all right, I'm just going to take you the fuck out. Sit the fuck down and shut up. Woo, that was uncomfortable.
I remember you talked about getting another job.
Yep. I actually did for a period of time. Part-time. Guess how long that lasted?
That's where I'm sitting right now. I get it.
I did it. Like, I went out, I only got something that would make me happy to go to. It made me happy to go to for a little bit of time. And then I was like, actually, I really want to be with my herbs, and I really want to be in my astrology. Like, how do we make this work, babe? And I really want to support X, Y, and Z. This is really what I want to do. I attempted to apply for full-time positions back in hospitals.
Yep.
I didn't make it. I didn't make it through the interview process. I made it through the first 3 interviews like multiple times. And then, by interview 4, because now it's 12 interviews to get a job. What the fuck? I was like, I can't do this. I'm sorry. I'm not a yes man. It's not going to be you say jump and I say how high. I'm going to run this like I'm running my own thing, which is really an asset when you think about it. But if you need a yes woman, I ain't your girl.
Well, that's the rub for me. I was saying,
but I did it.
A friend of mine. I was saying to a friend of mine yesterday, I was like, I can't work for somebody else because I'm going to tell them how the system isn't working.
Really an asset. If you think about it, if somebody was able to, maintain and generate revenue in their own thing for 7+ years, they probably have an idea of what they're doing. But I think a lot of companies fear that because it's like, well, we have the way that we like to do things. And if you come in and you see things that most other people don't see, that's going to require a change. We don't need a squeaky wheel.
Yep.
Okay, fine. Great. I'm glad we were able to determine this before the next 7 interviews that you were going to require of me. So, I mean, I did it like, what was that, 2 years ago? Like, I absolutely did the thing that, I thought I needed to do. And my part-time job was wonderful and I loved it. But it got to the point where it was like so physically laborious, and what I was being paid for the physical labor wasn't compensatory, that I was like, hey guys, this is actually wrecking my body.
Mhm.
I love what I do and like, I can't.
Yeah.
So I pulled back in and here we are. And I think it's very easy to forget once you've built something, how long it actually takes to build another.
Mhm.
And this time I can't do it out of alignment.
Yeah.
So every time I try to step out of line, it's like, boop. I'm like, okay, got it. Cool. So I don't even try anymore. I'm just like, it's patience. It's like, I'm going to just trust that this is, what is time anyway? I think this is what most of us struggle with. And this is a question I ask myself a lot. Wow, I have like massive ringing in my left ear right now. What is time anyway? Time is a construct. So if I spend 3 years building something that leaves a legacy of a lifetime, and I figure out the best ways to work with people that are sustainable for me and sustainable for them. It's not sustainable, thousands of dollars a month in supplements. Do you know it's not sustainable? Peeing in a cup that costs $500 because lab prices are not going down, every 4 to 6 months. Not sustainable. Especially when I can pull the pattern out of your birth chart and we can go to the root of it. Not sustainable. Everybody wants data. It's all right there. Just pivot your perspective on the data. It's all right there. Those numbers are only good for, at best, 24 hours. On occasion, it's a reflective 90-day look, depending on what test you're using. But like, not sustainable. What is sustainable is teaching you how to utilize tools to make medicine, and to discern what's going on in your world based on what's always been available to you. And learning those skills, you have to be committed to go back to school on yourself. It's that simple. And unlearn patterns.
I think that's the part that I love so much about Chinese medicine is the patterns are all right there in front of you.
Yep.
And you can see what the last few months, few years look like in a body because of what is right in front of you.
Yeah. So I think the times are changing and a lot of people are being asked to change with the times, and businesses. I love all these people that are like, oh, courses are dead right now. And I'm like, you are very confident. You do realize collectively businesses operate on 2-year cycles. So we're in an Aries season of business right now. That is like to the point. Here's your problem. Here's a resolution. It's very direct. But in another 2 years, we're going to be in Taurus. That's a slow build. That's product, right? So don't get too confident in this is the era of blah, 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 and it's dead. Okay, in 2 years, we'll be having a different conversation. The only reliable constant that we can count on is change. And the way that we remain relevant with change is staying adaptable. It's that easy. And if people are going to fight that, you're going to get left in the dark. It's that simple. So it's not the easy path to take, right? But it's going to be the one that makes whatever it is you're building sustainable. So I'm proud of you for taking a step back. Adrienne was really not totally on board she gave me permission. She said, yes, we can do this. But she was also like, I love this. And I'm like, I love this too. And I think a little bit of a pause for the summer would be really beautiful for both of us. So one, I'm proud of you. And two, thank you for letting me take the space, because it's not something that I have easily asked for historically.
And I understand that and have immense compassion for it.
Yeah. So, all right, guys. God, go fucking enjoy your summer. Can't wait to see you in the fall, right? The episodes are going to remain intact. If you're just now finding us, I don't know how many episodes we have at this point. Several. Go listen to them. Oh, man.
Yeah. 36, 37. Yeah.
That's a lot of podcasting time, right? Go listen to them. We look forward to bringing back all of the fun shit that we, sat with and discovered all summer. Like it, share it. Adrienne, anything you want to say?
Subscribe so that you know when we come back in the fall.
Yeah. But enjoy your summer, guys. And until September, stay well.